So part of the drive here is that cities are getting expensive, and we've got enough people at the bottom end of the spectrum, they can't afford housing. So quite often places where they can afford it, they are way too many people living in a very small space, right? You can have a two-bedroom apartment with 8 people living in it, or more, and it ends up being it becomes very hard to live in that kind of space and be comfortable and have the mental relaxation or whatever you need to be able to survive well. And so, do you foresee that we're going to have a lot more tear downs of single family homes being replaced by small multiplex units? Do you see us going up to 5 and 6 stories on a regular basis instead of 1 and 2 story unit apartment units? And just like you were talking about, and are you seeing like all the garages and driveways being torn out and replaced by units as well? Is that kind of what you're forecasting for the future?
Yeah, so going back to resource allocation, right? The reason real estate's a really slow moving industry is because we're talking about physical resources and the ability to build things and move matter and material. So one of the reasons that we don't, you could quickly, in the perfect world, yeah, you have a housing shortage, you build as big of a building as possible and put as many units there in a short amount of time. That would be the most efficient way to do this. But in our real world where we are limited to resources and allocations of resources, that the reason that doesn't happen as much is because there's things like zoning, which involves politics, involves, all these other pieces that play into it. So right now, the most efficient way that I'm seeing happening is using existing buildings. So not tearing the whole city down and rebuilding, although that does happen to a certain extent. It's utilizing the existing resources in the most efficient manner to repurpose them in a way that is going to be much quicker, much more cost effective, and ultimately still solves the same problem. And so, and especially in a city like LA, that's ultimately what's happening right now. It's utilizing those untapped resources that are going to be more efficient in building, because if you don't have to rebuild a whole building, which is going to cost a lot, and you can use existing structures and convert them into living spaces, that's where ultimately get. So it's the same thing that started happening with office space when, after COVID happened, right? We saw a lot of offices being vacant and people working from home. So we had, now the need for more housing went up and office space went down. So these things are they're imbalanced, the resources that are there. And so then a lot of the developers started looking at, okay, how can we rezone some of these, what was commercial office space into housing? And that's what's starting now. You also see it
Well,
happening with shopping malls and all these different ways of converting existing real estate, which is much more cost effective than just rebuilding completely.